Just like on Xbox Original, you were waiting for Halo 2, we get Aljamain Sterling and Piera 2, and I hope it's as good as that video game was way back when, all those years ago, because the first fight between Sterling and Jan, obviously it ended due to controversy. It was just over a year ago. Sterling, your champ, he wears the belt. People are upset that he shouldn't wear the belt, but he finally goes back and he's able to nurse those old injuries. And we look at it for Aljamain Sterling, he's always had that college pedigree of wrestling in his back pocket. In certain fights he uses it, in certain fights he doesn't need to because he's just so damn crisp when it comes to his striking. And for Aljamain Sterling, as low as people might be on him, and as nasty as people might get in the comment section under this video, the guy's 20-3, and he's only ever lost to really, really good level of competition. And you look at it for Aljamain Sterling.
Brian Caraway?
Even the 5-on-in. Cody Stamen, Jimmy Rivera, Pedro Munoz, Corey Sandhagen, and the Piera fight. We just continue to get better with that level of competition. Sterling's been adjacent to the top 15 for a very, very long time. Whereas for Piera, former champ over at the ACB. We started the channel off in 2018 with Fight Night Picks talking about guys like Askar Askarov and Piera finally getting their opportunity in the UFC. And for Jan, he's had certain fights where he's been tested a little bit. Like we've had those little tweaks. John Dodson able to do his magician type stuff and, you know, crack Jan on a couple of occasions. The crazy fight that Piera had against Jinsu San. Hell, even Piera fight they had to take in the meantime against Corey Sandhagen. Wild fight. Really love to see it. But if you look at it for Piera, switch things up once more. He's gone back over to Tiger Muay Thai to get ready for this camp. And it's things that you absolutely love to see out of him. For Jan, even in the other loss that he had, consider it. He has a close fight against Magomed Magomedov that he loses. And then he goes back into the next one, and it's like a fury rising, a phoenix rising. He went absolutely balls to the wall in that fight. Just think of what you're going to get in the second Sterling fight.
I truly believe Petr Yan is the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. If you just break down everybody in the UFC skill set, I truly believe Petr Yan right now is the most skilled fighter. And I know there's other fighters, like Alexander Volkanovski has a very good claim to that too. He's going to be the main event this weekend. But just think about what Petr Yan does and break down his strengths and his weaknesses. Let's start with his weaknesses. Perfect. Now let's go to his strengths. He's an incredible boxer. He can go to the body. He has great power, great output. He's very good defensively, and he's someone who doesn't get too excited when he does hurt his opponent or if he's just having good success overall. He's very, very patient, and that's the thing with Petr Yan. He's one of the smartest MMA fighters out there, and I feel like that's something that doesn't get talked about enough. MMA fighters have to be so effing smart when they're in fights at this level, fighting for titles. Petr Yan's fighting a guy who submitted the last guy he fought in like a minute and a half. That's how dangerous Aljamain Sterling is. Oh, and did I mention, he can throw hundreds of punches every single round. Like, Sterling didn't get to a title shot by accident. He didn't just, you know, he wasn't the short notice replacement for like 3 fights and Dana White wanted to give him a favor. Like, he beat Corey Sandhagen, and it basically, like, it wasn't even hard for him to do. Corey Sandhagen, who just had a fight of the year with Petr Yan. Like, Aljamain's win streak really doesn't get the credit that it does deserve. But let's put that to the side. Let's just break down their first fight really quick. Aljamain wasn't having a lot of success in that fight. And I know some people want to point to numbers in that fight and say, oh, well, he was landing a lot of volume. If you go back and watch that fight, he doesn't land clean enough on Petr Yan to really get his respect on the feet. And I think that's a big issue for him. Because if you're not able to hurt Yan, if you're not able to stun him or crack him on the feet, he can maintain a very, very high guard for the whole entire fight.
The trouble for Sterling, and he did have success at the start of that fight. He definitely did. He was able to win. You know, we're talking in terms of rounds, he was able to get it done with his volume, but he wasn't all the way in with his striking.
Because you can win a battle and then you can try to win the war. And for Petr Yan, he's thinking about the big picture overall. He knows that he can get stronger as the fight goes on. Like, Corey Sandhagen had success too early on, but this is the difference between Sandhagen and Sterling and just their overall striking style. Corey Sandhagen will stay patient and he will explode when he thinks he has an opening to explode. My issue with the striking style of Aljamain Sterling is a positive, but it's a negative. He gives you everything at once. There's no secrets after that first round, because when you're someone like Aljo, who throws 100, 150 strikes a round, you're going to run out of jabs and straight right hands to throw at a certain point. And with Aljo, he's just always doing something a la Clay Guida. Well, with someone like Petr Yan, whose whole game plan is, wait until you show me everything, and then I've got your reads, I just don't think it's a great game plan, and we did see that against Jan in their first fight. Yes, Sterling was able to get numbers up, but all of that does help Petr Yan in the grand scheme of things. The more openings that you show him, he's just going to get his own striking down a little bit closer and a little bit closer. And from midway through the second round on in their fight, Yan would make Sterling pay with power shots for every time Sterling would step in the pocket. And that's the big difference between these two guys. Sterling can hit Yan 20 times and there might not be an effect. If Yan hits Sterling one time clean, he's going to put him down.
And we saw how that played out in that first fight. And then all of a sudden, you know, you're watching this fight, and I bet every guy in that ATT corner is going to have in the back of their mind, don't throw that knee, don't throw that knee, don't throw that knee, especially when it's between rounds. Don't throw that knee, don't do it. You know exactly what you need not to do. Don't throw that knee. Even just from the corner, don't throw that knee. The whole crowd, maybe they'll yell in unison. Somebody will have a Bristol board where they wrote, don't throw that knee. They bought it at the Dollar Tree. And that rhymed. But Matt, when I do look at this one, you look at Petr Yan, and you can really kind of compare him to a lot of different boxers. Obviously, boxing is the main tool that you see. You will see a little bit of wrestling. He can mix it up there. I don't expect it necessarily against a guy.
He took down Aljo a lot in their first fight.
I don't necessarily see it just in this one. But the weirdest part about this overall fight, Aljamain Sterling, no Matt Serra. We're fighting out of Longo and Weidman MMA. No Matt Serra in the corner. So we'll have Ray Longo. He'll have Ali Quintel. He'll have Merab in the corner. But no Serra. That's a big, big point. It was a point after that fight. It's been a point, and now it's going to flare back up as this fight week goes on. But with Petr Yan, the big comparison where I was going with his boxing is you're going to hear, you know, and I made the comparison with the Floyd Mayweather of downloading an opponent's game plan. But even like a guy like Canelo Alvarez, he does the exact same
Terrence
thing.
Crawford is the perfect example because they both fight from both stances.
Both stances, download a game plan, continue on, and then like Canelo against Billy Joe Saunders. Like, once we've really figured this one out, we're going to break this guy's face. So for Petr Yan, another big-time opportunity in the rematch. For Aljamain Sterling, though, it's almost a bigger opportunity because for Yan, he was able to go out, he fought Corey Sandhagen, all-time fight of the year fight, win that interim gold, and then just rebook his shot, which you already would have thought would have been rebooked, but Sterling needed time to repair and recuperate from the surgery, the injuries that he's had, you know, kind of an accumulation of damage throughout his career. For Sterling, though, he gets to gain your respect, my respect, everybody else's respect, and I've kept it for Sterling. I don't read into much of the stuff. I know a lot of people like to get hyped and hurt about what he says in the media. He's having a fun time with it, if you haven't realized. But the odds for this one, you don't often see the defending champion open a plus 285, now at a plus 350, but you have it this time. And for Petr Yan, open a minus 350, minus 467. We'll open it up to the YouTube community tab, Matt, but I'll let you first kind of digest those odds here.
They make 100% sense to me. Did anybody who watched that first fight think that Aljo was on his way to winning before Petr Yan landed that knee? No one? Perfect. Like, yes, he had some success with his volume early, but this is the big difference. Aljo can throw strikes, but there's not an accumulation of damage behind them. When Vicente Luque throws strikes, there is a big difference between what that guy looks like in the first round to the third round. Their face is messed up, they have a lot of swelling, there's open cuts. With Aljo, it's a lot of pitter-patter, you get frustrated with my pitter-patter, you shoot on me, I submit you. That's sort of the progression of his game. Petr Yan took him down multiple times in their first fight, and there was zero threat of Yan getting submitted. That's how good of a grappler Petr Yan is, and he's a way better boxer than he is a grappler. That's why at the start when I said let's break down Petr Yan's weaknesses and strengths, I didn't spend a lot of time on weaknesses, because if we are being honest, okay, he's not a great offensive submission fighter. That's fine. You don't have to be when you're as good as he is with your ground and pound and with your wrestling. And for Aljamain Sterling to be as good as he is, and me finding it this hard to find a way for him to win, just sort of speaks to how good Petr Yan is. I truly do think Petr Yan, if he is able to win this fight against Aljo, I look at him as being the most likely to knock off Dominic Cruz, as eventually getting that title of who the greatest bantamweight of all time is at the UFC level.
1,600 total votes, 84% going with Petr Yan. In the comments section in the YouTube community tab, DrewCliff82 saying, I think Yan gets it, but I think it will be more competitive than the last one. Some people seem to forget the first two rounds of the last fight were competitive. Yan won them, of course, but they were competitive. We also have Yan by legal knee this time. We also have AG saying, I wish I could have got the minus 115 on Yan like the first matchup. Owen Sweet saying Yan by soccer kick, and way back up to the top, Bo said, I wonder if Sterling is going to change the game plan from the first fight. It seemed like he was trying to put as much pressure as he could on Yan. But Yan was able to make his reads, and Sterling was gassing out. And that is a big deal, especially in that first fight, whereas Yan's one of those guys that builds up as the fight goes on. Sterling fights with a high pace, but in a 5-round fight, we'll see how he's able to, you know, kind of withstand that. So maybe if you like Aljamain Sterling, it's early, but we already saw those early reads in his first fight against Piera. Not to say that it's not possible, because Aljamain Sterling, premier fighter in this division. Do not forget that. Like, a lot of people are just going emotion only in this fight, but trying to use logic to prevail. I mean, Petr Yan, again, what I saw from this guy out of ACB in the revenge rematch against Magomed Magomedov, then to come into the UFC, and yes, some of those fights, maybe they're a little more competitive than you want or whatever. Maybe they're too much fun and you expect more out of Petr Yan. But the Jin Soo Sun fight, the John Dodson fight, I give you the Uriah Faber fight, like, exactly, as a counter to that. So, realistically for me, or the Jose Aldo fight where it was pretty much one-way traffic. And look at how Jose Aldo's looked at 135 even since that fight. So, for me, yeah, I like Petr Yan in this fight. And I don't see a big difference out of the, the last one to this one here.
Interesting note that Khamzat Chimaev spent a little bit of time training with Petr Yan during this training camp. Wasn't there for a long time, but I thought that was really interesting.
For a good time.
Exactly. So have a good time because the sun can't shine every day. I just think Petr Yan doesn't really have any weaknesses in his game to where Aljo can overtake them. Like, Aljo, more likely than not, is probably going to win this fight by submission if he is going to win. And for him to win it by submission, he's going to have to require Yan to probably go for a finish early, overexert himself, and then fight in an uncharacteristic Petr Yan way for another 20 minutes. I just don't expect all those things to break right for Aljo. I think Petr Yan is the much more powerful striker. He's the much more technical striker. And this is the last thing. I know he got hit by John Dodson. That's the only guy who's hit him clean in the UFC. Like, Jose Aldo landed a few leg kicks, but with his boxing, he had little to no success whatsoever. And even against Corey Sandhagen, that fight was really good. But defensively, Petr Yan's so good at parrying shots in tight that he's not going out there getting hit clean, even though he is getting into some crazy fights in the UFC. So I'm not worried about Yan and, is his durability going to completely fade away in this fight? So I do like Petr Yan in this matchup, but the bantamweight division is on fire right now.
Bantamweight and Fuego right up there near the tippity top of my list on the last episode of Early Stoppage when we ranked the divisions. So go check out the podcast on the channel. Big time opportunity for both of these guys. Both of us going with the interim champ, No Mercy, Petr Yan. You let us know down below in the comment section who you have. Keep filling up and checking out that YouTube community tab. And the last thing that I have for you, if you haven't checked it out already, all of this is a podcast. It's on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Rate and review. We never get to hear from anybody in the comments over there. And if we do start hearing from people over there, well, we'll start talking about it on the show as well. So check out the podcast if you haven't already. We definitely appreciate everybody's support, and we have a big-time main event for gold at 145 between Alexander Volkanovski and the man himself, the Korean Zombie, that you're not going to want to miss. So check it out. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, as we always say. Let's get into it.